Why do you think you've stuck at training for so long when most people give up?
Ooh, that's a good question. I have stuck at training for so long when others give up because I don't want to be fat. We talked about this last week, didn't we? About me not wanting to be fat. But genuinely, when you first experience the results that you get from training hard and eating right, as I did after that initial 9 month, well, it wasn't 9 months actually, it was kind of 6 month period where I lost all the weight before I went to university in my gap year. I just never wanted to go back there. It just wasn't an option. So no matter what, training became a fixed firm part of my routine. Now I didn't always do it perfectly. Uh, Large gulfs of time where my training was suboptimal at best, but I kept going week in, week out, taking a rest week maybe every 8 to 12 weeks or so. Other than that, I've just never stopped because I know that if I do, then the person I was before, lazy, out of shape, tired all the time, hating what I saw in the mirror, he would come back to say hello, probably a lot faster than I would like as well.
Yeah, good answer. I was going to ask about the person that you didn't want to be before. Would you say it was mostly the physical or like the character stuff or a bit both?
Oh, it's absolutely character building.
Yeah.
It's character building. I am of the perhaps controversial view that a person's physique reveals much about their character, their inward. What is outward reveals much about what is inward. Um, I've never met a guy who's in genuinely really good shape who isn't juiced up to the gills, one of those cretins, who isn't a really decent bloke. I think a lot of that's to do with male problems with things like aggression and um, mood and so on that are typically male problems are worked out in the gym. So when you are training consistently, 3, 4, or 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week, all of the pent up negativity that is just part and parcel of being a man, even more so in today's world where you're not really allowed to be a man anymore, it gives you an outlet for that. So you don't carry it into your interpersonal relationships. So as I say, I've never met a natural athlete, guy who lifts without taking steroids, who isn't an idiot. I've met plenty of guys in incredible shape who are on gallons and gallons of juice, who are arseholes. But again, the fact that they have achieved what they have through injecting and swallowing toxic substances as a form of shortcut, because let's face it, that's what it is, or to create an exaggerated form. Well, that says a lot about who they are as people, anyway. Well, incidentally, I've not met many guys actually who have trained week in week out for more than a few years. That's quite interesting. Naturally, they're quite rare. They're quite rare. I actually remarked about this to a friend of mine at the gym who is in a similar position to me. He's been training non-stop for 20 years now. I've been about 14, 15. And both of us, like, we're the only guys we know around here that are in that situation, which is quite interesting. But as I say, he's also nicest chap I know.
Yeah. And I think as well, something that we've certainly bumped up against is to train regularly, you have to set boundaries with yourself and with the people around you. And I think that it takes someone of strong character to set a boundary and keep it and have a reason to keep it.
Well, I moved around a lot, and what's the first thing I did before when I would look to get a job in a new town? The first thing I did before anything else was find where the nearest gym was. Is there a gym? Is there a gym within a reasonable distance of where I intend to live? And that was just it is that discipline, isn't it? Similarly, when I've gone away on like training courses and stuff, do you remember when after we met and I got that corporate job
Mm.
and I went to
Yeah.
Norwich for training for 2 weeks? As soon as I got the "you're going to Norwich for training," I was like, okay, well, where's the nearest gym to where I'm going? Where's a decent gym in Norwich? And it turns out I found one very quickly, and it was difficult actually on the first night of the course when everyone wanted to go to the Premier Inn bar and have a drink or whatever. But I said, "Oh, guys, I'm going to have to catch up with you later," because I went straight from the training centre to the gym and went to, and that just was a non-negotiable for me. So, yeah, having that discipline, it does it does utterly inform the way that you conduct yourself. And in some regards, I suppose it does kind of make it harder for you to build relationships with normies.
Yeah.
Um, but by the end of the course, I had people who were genuinely interested in what I was doing and why. And I filtered out all the idiots. So all the idiots who just wanted to go and eat crap and drink and be fat and lazy obviously took a dislike to me immediately. But there were, I think it was a cohort of about 20, and there were five or six people who by the end I had built really strong bonds with, and I remained in contact with them for a good year afterwards, even though we were all working at different parts of the country, because they saw what I was doing. They were very interested in it, very respectful of it. And one of them actually started weightlifting off of the back of seeing what I was doing, because we got to talking about it in lunches and things, and yeah, and she went off and took to training. I've fallen out of touch with her now, but you know.
Would you say there's a tipping point where it becomes part of your character and it would almost be more painful not to train?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the earlier you start, the easier it is to reach that tipping point.
Yeah.
I think there's a great degree of neuroplasticity. And we know this, that the recent psychological research, I say recent, it's a few years old now, where they're saying that the human brain isn't fully developed until the age of 25.
Right.
So I started training when I was 18, just a month shy of 19 years old. Or about a month shy of 19 years old. So I was still very much in a formative phase of life. And I have the utmost understanding sympathy for men who are much older who are starting to try and train, because the habits that you're setting are going to be a lot harder to overcome because the brain is rigid. But that you will reach, it's inevitable that you will reach the tipping point. We talked about this on the way in from the steakhouse last night, didn't we? About how you're never going to stay on a flat level. You're either going to make positive improvements to your life or negative improvements to your life, and these things have a habit of compounding. So you make some small positive changes, and you don't really get much in the way of results, and that's why lots of people quit.
Yeah.
But over time, if you keep making those small positive things, like going to the gym regularly and not eating like a walrus, the results that you get compound, and then it just takes off at a certain point. It becomes very easy. And as I say, the older you are, it's probably harder to reach that takeoff point. But you might as well do it, because the alternative is you're going to do negative things, i.e., not go to the gym and eat crap.
Yeah.
At which point, that you're going to hit that tipping point, and you're going to accelerate to the really scary tipping point, which is the point at which it's arguably too late for any diet or exercise intervention to make any difference to your long-term health and well-being outcomes. Because that's a very real point for a lot of people. There will come a time where you're too old, fat, and or out of shape to do anything at all.
Yeah.
And that's a lot sooner than people think.
Well, yeah, my experience, I was 25, BMI 35, and it was probably 5 years for me to hit the tipping point where it would be uncomfortable for me not to carry on doing what I'm doing with my health and
Well, it was
fitness.
after you had Connie, wasn't it?
I would say it was later than that. I think after Marcus, probably only 18 months ago, was the real tipping point where I went, no, I'm never going back.
And that was the product of lots of small little positive changes where you didn't really feel like you were getting anywhere for most of the time, but you kept going.
Yeah.
And your life, if you look back now on your life from when we met to that point, you will be able to see the small incremental changes and the results that we were talking about. You just didn't see it in the moment because it's damn hard to see it in the moment.
Yeah.
Especially because, as I say, they are really minor. I give my own example. Even at 19 years old, when I should be at the peak of my physical potential to actually take off in terms of training, I remember the first between the kind of the August, September to Christmas, because I decided on 27th of December 2009 to actually not be fat anymore and start eating properly. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning. But prior to that, in the months leading up to that, yeah, I was making. I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere, because yes, I was making these strength gains, but that's not particularly hard when you're obese. It's not hard to go from not deadlifting at all to deadlifting. I think it was 170 for a set of 170 kilos for a set of 5 in about 2.5, 3 months. But again, when you're really fat and 19, that's not a big deal. But I still looked at myself in the mirror, and yeah, my arms got a bit bigger and a bit more muscular. I remember there was one of the guys at the gym. He actually said to me, "Oh, you've got lovely big arms, you do." That was the only compliment he could pay about my body, because the rest of it looked like a bloody. Oh, it was horrendous. Um, but as I say, I kept going even though I didn't really feel like I was getting anywhere, because I did still look like crap. I still look like crap despite doing training. I think I wouldn't recommend anyone emulate the routine I was following, because I was 19, didn't have a clue what I was doing. But I was training for about 3.5 hours between kind of 6:30 in the morning and 10. Is that 3.5 hours? Because about 6:30 till 10 in the
Yeah.
morning. Doing all this kind of all the big compound lifts every single time.
How
Um,
many days a week?
3 Monday, Wednesday, and Friday without fail religiously. And yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I was making great progress in terms of strength, as I say, with that ridiculous program. But the actual what I actually wanted, which was to not be fat anymore, to actually like what I saw in the mirror, wasn't happening. But when I look back on that period, I can actually see that there were positive changes happening out with the strength gains I was seeing in terms of the way my physique was and things. So
Yeah, and certainly when I was pregnant with Marcus, I didn't do everything that I know I should have done or wanted to do,
hmm.
but I did more than I did with Connie. And I think it was the day he was born, and I came downstairs, and our Tesco delivery had arrived, and I put it away.
Well, yeah, because I'd gone out for a walk.
Yeah,
I didn't work all day.
yeah, I'd given birth to him at home, came downstairs, and there were tins of tinned tomatoes on the side, and I put it away. And that was when I realised that I had the strength and discipline in my character
Yes,
now to make it happen.
yes.
Cool. So, next question. In 5 minutes, and I will keep an eye on this,
Okay.
explain something to me that is complicated, but that you know really well.
5 minutes. Something that
Yeah.
was complicated that I know really well. Oh, I'm going to take bloody 5 minutes thinking about that. Fine. Let us look at the barbell squat. I know the barbell squat very well. So I've always squatted. The very first weights workout, I mentioned it in the last conversation with my ex-girlfriend's dad, was a squat workout in his garage. All of it dodge, really. But ever since then, squatting has been, a non-negotiable. I have always squatted. Because it is truly the king of exercises. Now, there are lots of different ways that you can do a squat, and it's something that lots of people on the internet have very strong opinions about how you should and or should not do squats. Um, Personally, I take a very laissez-faire approach to how people squat. So long as you're doing it, it doesn't really matter. The ins and outs, the specifics don't really matter. I say actually caveat that even further. As well, as long as you do it and you do it safely, i.e., it doesn't hurt you, and you're able to maintain joint integrity, i.e., good form throughout. How you do it doesn't really matter. For anyone who is nervous about starting squatting, my biggest suggestion to all of anyone would be that you really need to be able to confidently do a set of slow and controlled bodyweight squats for at least 30 reps, one set of at least 30 reps in slow and controlled, maintaining good form. Ideally, getting your hips slightly below parallel with your knees. If you cannot do that whilst maintaining good form, just that single set of 30, ideally 2 sets of 30 really, you have absolutely no business touching a barbell. We actually had a rule. Remember in the gym, I had the rule where you had to be able to do that before I would let them move on to any barbell training at all. There were some other strength standards as well that we use for body weight, but that was the one for squatting. But yeah, beyond that, there are loads of different types of squat. So you have your standard barbell back squat, of which there are two main variations. You have a high bar squat and a low bar squat. Which one you choose will depend primarily on your body type more than anything else. So people who have a long torso and short legs, like me. So yeah, when I sit down, I look like a human, but when I stand up, I look like a dwarf because I have a normal person's body, but freakishly short legs. People like that typically do better with a high bar squat because of joint angles and essentially because what you want to be doing is maintaining a straight bar path over the middle of the foot, and that's the easiest way for that particular body morphology to do that. Taller guys, lankier guys, guys with short torsos, long legs, and people who aren't generally very athletic do better with the barbell low bar barbell squat. And the best person to teach you that is a guy called Mark Ripperto, author of Starting Strength. He has a YouTube channel where I think there's one video that's brilliant where you just watch him coach the low bar squat in like 30 different people back to back. So if you want to learn how to squat, just watch that video. Low bar squat. Generally speaking, the low bar squat enables you to lift greater weights. The average person will lift more weights with a low bar squat than a high bar squat, because more muscles are used in that movement. So it brings the whole posterior chain, so lower back, hamstrings, hips, into the movement a lot more than a high bar squat, which is very much focused on the quads. Beyond the back squat, you have the front squat, which is where you put the bar on the front of your body and you do a squat with it, with a much more upright torso. These are a brilliant exercise because they are self-limiting. You cannot really front squat with a weight that's dangerous for you for a variety of reasons. First one is that if you put a weight that's too heavy on your clavicles in a front rack, you will pass out. This happened to me. I was desperate to front squat 100 kilos at the time. I was about 20 years old. And I put 100 kilos on the bar thinking I'd be able to do it because I was able to back squat a fair bit more than that at the time. And I thought I was going to die and I blacked out. So it's a self-limiting movement in that regard. The other cool thing about it is that you won't pass out, but you will tip forwards too much and you'll dump the bar, which is another thing. So it's great. It forces you to maintain good form because, as I say, you lose the bar otherwise if you tip too far forwards. Got a few options with terms of grip. This is what people struggle with. I believe that every person who doesn't have like serious shoulder or wrist or upper limb problems should aspire to what's called a front rack. If you don't know what that is, Google it because it can't be bothered to explain it. But everyone should aspire to the front rack. I'll give a quick explanation. It's like what you see the Olympic weightlifters do on the Olympics when they pick the bar up off the floor and they do the clean and it sits on their shoulders. That's what's called a front rack when it's in that position. The reason everyone should aspire to do that is because it's the most natural way to hold the bar. The other option you have is something called the Cossack grip. I hate this and think it's stupid, and I think anyone who does the Cossack grip is stupid. That's where you cross your arms in front of your chest, also known as like the bodybuilder style, and you hold the bar that way. The reason I don't like it is it's bloody dangerous because it's incredibly unstable. It's incredibly unstable. And the final way for people who can't or don't want to do the front rack is to wrap a pair of lifting straps around the bar, pull them tight, and then hold the bit. And you would hold the piece that you would normally wrap around the bar if you were doing a deadlift, and you just hold that straight up. Again, Google what I'm talking about. Google how to do front squat with lifting straps. So that's your front squat.
Cool. Well, that was 5 minutes.
Oh, was it?
I was just going to ask you one more question though, because we were talking about it the other day. You said that your squat form changed after an injury.
Yes. So I used to do, believe it or not, despite having perfect body type for high bar squats, I used to do low bar squats because I was very much into the powerlifting side of things for a good many years. And I ended up with a really bad inflammation in my hip on the right hand side, to the point that it was actually quite painful to get in and out of a chair. So I had to stop doing the low bar squat, the powerlifting style low bar squat. But what I did notice was that I could still squat with a very narrow stance, so literally with my feet touching each other, I could still squat. Obviously, this meant moving the bar up my back a little bit to a high bar position, but I had no issue. I could go all the way down with my feet together. Again, the only reason I could do this is because I have a very strange build, but I had no pain whatsoever. So I did that using a really light weight, obviously, because it's the most stupid way to squat. I looked like a right idiot, and people were looking at me like I had some sort of mental health condition. And then as the weeks went by, I kind of just widened my stance inch by inch by inch by inch. And eventually I just settled upon this kind of just slightly narrower than shoulder width apart stance. And that's been the way I've squatted ever since. And I've since massively surpassed my previous personal bests with the low bar squat in this stance. And I only found it because I played. But for that injury, I would never have found this stance. And I've had no issues with my hips, no issues with my back, no issues with my knees, anything like that ever since. So there you are. And I squat at least once a week, every week.
Is there anything else you want to say about squat?
Anything else I want to say about the squat? I think everyone should do them. As I say, bodyweight squats first. If you can do those to that 30 rep strength standard I recommended, then then graduate yourself onto a barbell. With your barbell, you've really got 3 different options. You've got high bar squat, low bar squat, and front squat. most people should probably most average people should probably try the low bar squat first. If you want to learn how to do that, Google the Mark Ripto video that I mentioned where he coaches a bajillion people one after the other on how to do it.
Cool. Next question.
Ooh.
When was the last time you changed your mind about something important?
When was the last time I changed my mind about something important?
Cardio?
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of probably about a year ago on cardio. Yeah, it was about a year ago on cardio. Now, I've always had a patchy relationship with cardio. I've always done it, but it's only ever been consistent when it was a necessary part of my life. Like when I lived in a city and didn't have a car, then I was walking. Got to be at least 6 miles a day. Then some on days where I was going to the gym, and then even more on the weekends because I just like walked to town and back 3 times. So I had nothing better to do because I had no friends.
You also did cardio during COVID when the gym was shut.
Yes, that was another point. Yes, when the gym shut during COVID, I was doing the couch to 5K, didn't I?
And you did quite a lot of stuff in the park.
Yeah, I did loads of cardio because I had nothing else to do because the gym was shut. And even though and that actually preserved my physique quite well during that lockdown period. Bodyweight exercises too. But when it's not been forced upon me, historically, I've had a poor relationship with it, as do most men who were overweight in the past. Because the reason we choose lifting, and this is the secret that I know about you if you're an overweight man, is that the reason you picked weightlifting is because it's easier than running. It's a type of exercise where you get to go to the gym and you get to do a lot of sitting around, and you also get to eat lots of food to get big. So that's why you do weightlifting and you don't do cardio. Also, cardio is hard when you're heavy. Whether you're muscular or fat and muscular, it's just hard when you're heavy. So that's another reason why you're avoidant. That's the reasons why I was avoidant with it for a long time. And as I say, it got to the point a year ago. A couple of things happened, didn't they? There was the incident at Butlins with me refusing to go to the pool with you and Connie.
Yeah.
Even though that was like Connie's literally her favourite thing in the universe was go to the pool, and I went once and left after about half an hour. To my eternal shame, it was awful and not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. And then made you take her by yourself when you were heavily pregnant with Marcus, because that's a really masculine thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny how when you're fat, you're not masculine. Then there was the trip to after we took Marcus for his hips, and we went.
Yeah.
We went home, then we went back to Scunthorpe the week after shopping for clothes. So I wanted to get some clothes. And I couldn't fit into my usual size jeans, trousers. I just couldn't do them up. And I saw myself in the mirror of the changing room. And you know how changing room mirrors, particularly in shops like Next, are designed to be as flattering as possible with the lighting? So even really good lighting and a changing room mirror, I look like a sack of mouldy potatoes. I was disgusted. I'm surprised I wasn't lactating I had such voluminous breasts.
All you fitted in was your tracksuits.
Yeah, it was awful. Don't say that. You sound like you were disappointed in me. See, this is my wife, and she was disappointed and didn't really want to have sex with me. So that's kind of what happened. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I need to take this cardio thing seriously. So I did, and I realised I'm not going to get at 30 because even though the thing is, what I was relying on is what worked for me well in the past. So I mentioned that when I lived in the city and I didn't have a car, I was walking a lot. Well, similar situation here. We have a car. We don't live in a city, but I was still walking a lot.
Mm.
But walking a lot and lifting at 32 years old was no longer sufficient to maintain my weight and to maintain a lowish body fat. I needed to up the cardio intensity for a variety of reasons. One of which being I'd passed my strength peak. So what I'm doing in the gym is now less intense than it was 6 years ago or whatever. And then obviously there's the metabolic slowdown that comes with your age. In fact, my testosterone levels have dropped because no, I don't take TRT. My testosterone levels they naturally drop when you get into your 30s. That's just a normal part of getting older. But there are consequences associated with that. And you can offset all of this stuff, as we found out, with regular cardio. And the thing is, you don't even have to do a lot of it. Yeah, you have to do a lot of it. I probably do. Walking aside, because we walk every day for 45 minutes to an hour anyway, as should everyone. There's no reason why, unless you're like in a wheelchair, you can walk for half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour every day. And then but beyond that, the actual cardio I do is probably, 2 hours a week, 2.5 hours a week, if that, in terms of actual running or cycling that we do.
Yeah.
I seldom run more than 2 miles.
No, it's normally half hour to 40 minutes.
a few times a
3,
week.
4
Yeah,
times a week.
3 times a week. So yeah, and I seldom run more than 2 miles in one go.
Yeah.
And when I do sprints, I'll seldom do more than 10 sprints. So we're talking a lot of work here, and it gives you this tremendous wriggle room doing cardio. Like we went to that steakhouse I mentioned last night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Talked about this a moment ago, but I can go and I can say, Jess, we're going to an all-you-can-eat steakhouse on a whim, and have no worries about how that's going to affect my physique because I know that I'm doing regular cardio. Obviously, I can't go every night. You have to have something called moderation, restraint. But it does give you the wiggle room for these dalliances, which you can use to do things like go to a nice restaurant with your wife or have ice cream with your kids without actually having to really pay for it in any meaningful way. So yeah, regular cardio, change my mind on that, as should you if you're not doing it right now.
And it's uncomfortable. It hurts to start with, right?
Oh, it hurts. It's horrible. It still hurts. And the thing is, it always sucks. I don't believe anyone who says cardio's okay or fun or nice. I think they're all a bit strange. I don't think it will ever be nice or fun or easy. It's a deeply unpleasant activity to do. To do steady state cardio for 25, 30 minutes, 40 minutes is deeply unpleasant. And it always will be. And I think trying to tell people that it will get better with time. No, it won't. In the same way as lifting weights doesn't really get better with time because you just put more weight on the bar, it still feels the same. Arguably worse, because the difference between 60 kilos on your joints versus 180 kilos on your joints, yes, even if you're strong enough to lift 180 kilos, that's going to have a measurably different effect on your body. So it never gets easier. It never gets easier. But what does get easier are your activities of daily living. So your energy levels, as I mentioned on the last podcast, will remain flat. Not high, but flat. So no crashes. Doing stuff with your kids. Getting down up and down off the floor, going mucking about with them in the park. All these things become very easy. But the cardio itself, it's always going to suck. And anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you because they want to sell you something.
I guess coming full circle to what you said at the start, after a while, it just becomes part of your character. You stop asking yourself, I don't want to do it. And you just do it, right?
Well, yeah, you build up a pain tolerance. You're able to deal with the pain and discomfort of 40 minutes of pounding the pavements.
Yeah.
You just, it's crap. Yeah, of course it's crap. But you just go, I've just got to do it. Because you get insight in, well, you know what good that does for your life outside of the cardio. It's going to feel like crap, but hey, it means I can do all this other stuff. So 40 minutes of discomfort a few times a week in exchange for a much better relationship with your partner, or being able to play a truly full and active part in your kid's life, not just now, but when they move house, when they go to university and they need help lifting and shifting furniture, you'll actually be able to do it because you don't have diabetes and aren't suffering with neuropathy pains from that because that you've got from your lifestyle related obesity. All of these things. So when you judge them the same way, like you're cold calling for your new business, aren't you?
Yeah.
What's worse? Some person who you don't know, who doesn't know you, being a little bit rude to you on the phone, or sending your child and not being able to homeschool our children.
Yeah.
What's worse? Which pain is greater? Or having to deal with some idiot middle manager?
And then a thing worth having is on the other side of a wall of pain.
That's your thing that you say. It's very clever. You do say something intelligent every now and again.
Yeah, once a month.
Yeah.
That's about my quota.
I think so.
And on that note, I think we'll close.
Perfect.